Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for helping out. My name is Ransom Nima. Final year radiography student. Also I medical writer, and today have an amazing guest speaker all the way from the UK. Hey, Ima, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yes, of course. Hi, my name is Emma. I am a public speaking coach and a speech therapist, and I help female entrepreneurs to boost their visibility and their business through mastering public speaking.
Amazing. So thank you so much for introducing yourself, Ima, to the audience. So we have a couple of questions for you to answer. You ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
All right. So you know your niche is kind of like very rare. It's speech therapist is a very rare niche to forward in. So tell us, what made you to move from speech language therapist to public speaking coaching, and how do these two fields complement each other for you? Talk us there.
Sure. So I trained in speech therapy at university and worked as a speech therapist for 10 years. And it was a natural transition, really. So I've worked with clients on speech and communication with things like brain injury, voice loss, stroke, and it really helped me see the broader need for confident speaking. So, yes, you can teach someone who's had a brain injury how to speak again, but a big part of the changes are in their confidence. So, the other thing for me as well was speech therapy is very much about fixing, like, this is the problem, this is how we fix it with therapy. Whereas after I did my coaching qualification last year, coaching is more about empowering and guiding. And I really love bringing the two of those things together, and they complement each other really well.
Mm, amazing. Wow. I love the fact you mentioned about someone that had like a brain, tumor, like a brain kind of like disease, you know, helping the patient or the person to, teach, speak again. It's an amazing thing to do. Yeah, they can work together,
Mm.
speech therapy, to public speaking. That's a nice transition right there, Ima. Thank you so much for talking us there about what really made you to, move from speech language therapist to public speaking, coaching, and how these two fields, complement each other. Now, the next question for you, Ima, is how has your background in speech pathology influence the way you approach training your clients, especially in public speaking? Talk us there.
Sure. So, really, in order to help people regain their speech, it's required me to study and really, truly, deeply understand the mechanisms that are involved. And once you understand that process, it means that you can assess and understand somebody's problem and give them that tailored, personalized solution. So, moving away from that, not one size fits all, here's a standard program for a group, each person is different, their speech is different. And so, that's going to help make the biggest impact to them is have a tailored solution. So, when you're aware of this kind of common speech problems, so like a fast speech pattern, maybe speaking at a very flat rate or having weak projection. I've worked with people in speech therapy. So, for example, I've had clients who have got very slurred speech after a stroke. And so we work on slowing down, over articulating, and that works really well in public speaking because, for example, when you get nervous, very often people will speak very fast. So a lot of the patterns that you see and a lot of the things that help are very similar across the two areas. So it's helped me with exactly what I do and my techniques. So vocal warm-ups, using breath control, helping people articulate. So form their words clearly. So again, as I was saying before, the two really complement each other when you've got the mechanisms of speech and the knowledge of that, as well as the psychology and the emotional well-being, and putting the two together.
Mm, amazing. How about people that stammer? How do you work with them?
So I am not an expert in stammering, but there's very different techniques that you can use with stammering. A lot of that is around the psychology. Very often people are being asked more demand of them than they have capacity. And the
Mm,
stammer can be a coping mechanism. But I will say that that's not my expert area. There's something I learned about at uni and did placements in, but it's not my expert area. Mine is more around kind of neuroscience with stroke. But again, very similar techniques.
mm, mm. All right, thank you so much, Ema, for talking us through about your background in speech pathology, and how it's influenced the way you approach training your clients in public speaking. Thank you so much, Ema. So, moving to the next question right now. So, Ema, talk us through what are some common languages or communication problems that people encounter when speaking in public, and how do you help them overcome these problems?
Yeah, so I would say there's three really common ones are, first of all, using the words like so which are known as filler words. Words like so, like, that kind of thing. I'm actually about to launch a challenge called in the next couple of weeks, which is going to be a 5-day challenge on why we say filler words and how to stop doing that. So very often when we're talking and our brain is thinking of what to say next, we'll say the word to try and fill that gap and fill the silence, when actually we don't need to. There are other ways of doing that instead, because it can make you sound very unsure and that you don't know what you're talking about. So that would be my first one. Another one would be overusing what I call jargon. So words that are quite complicated, or over explaining something. So it might be that someone has a really clear message or a really powerful message, but they're talking for too long. They're using words and overcomplicating it. So instead, what I will do is say, let's take your message, let's make it concise, and let's make it clear so your audience have time to understand. And then my third one would be speaking in what we call a monotone voice. So speaking very flat. You can hear I'm doing it now. There's no inflection or excitement in my voice. So I will teach people how to use stress and how to say certain words to make them stand out more, or to speak faster or slower to make your voice sound more interesting. So there's a few there that I will typically deal with.
Man, these are really problems that people encounter when speaking in public, and it's amazing that you try to help them to overcome this problem. So if you're watching this video and you know there's some common languages, communication problems that you're encountering in your public speaking services, I think Ima is the best person to reach out to. Her details will be on the YouTube description below, so do well to reach out to her if you have you know faced with all these problems. Thank you so much, Ima, for talking us through on how you overcome these problems for your clients as well. Amazing. So, the fourth question for you is, can you share some practical tips to improve voice clarity and reduce public speaking anxiety? How do you do that?
Absolutely. One of my favorite tips to help with anxiety and making your voice clearer is the power of the pause. So I mentioned before about when we very often say to fill silence, but actually if you pause when you make a really important point, like then, it gives your audience time to soak up what you're saying. And on top of that, it's going to help you slow down. It's going to help you take a breath and think about what you're saying next. So the power of the pause, I usually say in the middle of a sentence, 1 or 2 seconds, and at sort of the end of this sentence, 2 to 3 seconds. Doesn't have to be really long, but it can make a really big impact on how confident you sound.
Mm.
The other ones I have are warm-ups. So if you're a speaker and you're using your voice, you want to warm your voice up because it's a tool. In the same way an athlete will warm up their body before they exercise, I'll do vocal warm-ups. I did some before I started this, whether it's humming or tongue twisters. In fact, the other thing I do is I have a straw and I put it in water and I blow bubbles and say, ooh. And that's a really great way to warm your voice up before you speak.
Mm.
And then in terms of anxiety, I have something called the Fearless Speaker Blueprint, and it's a step-by-step of what you should do before a speaking event. So things like, are you visualizing before a couple of weeks before your speech, visualizing it going well, what that's going to look like? Are you using grounding techniques? So that's about being aware of your body and shifting yourself from your mind back into your body.
Mm.
And general anxiety reducing techniques. So I really like power statements. So not just saying, I am a powerful speaker before you start to speak, actually believing those statements because you have evidence of why they are true. And that takes a little bit of background work before you do it.
Amazing. Wow. I think your services are really, paramount for the audience because you know we faced a couple of things while speaking. Whether you're hosting something, you're talking to the public, wherever it is, we face kind of like some anxieties and our
Yeah,
voice isn't really heard enough and stuff like that. These are
absolutely.
amazing, these are amazing practical tips now that you dropped right there that could help we the audience that are faced with public speaking anxiety, and we are really appreciated that these practical tips could help us to ease off anxiety when speaking and all that. So if you're watching this video and you're faced with your voice and not really heard, there's no clarity in your speeches and all that, and you have public speaking anxiety, I think all this nuggets that Emma dropped for us would really help you to go thus far with your voice being heard, being your voice having some clarity and the audiences are really grasping what you're saying in general, and also easing off public speaking anxiety as well. Thank you so much, Emma, for talking us through. So the next question for you is, what are the key elements of effective public speaking, and how can you develop the skills?
Yeah, so I like to think as public speaking having three main elements. So the first one is mindset. So it could be that you've overcome your public speaking fears and you feel okay about it or confident, but actually, do you truly embed the mindset of a confident speaker? Do you know that your message has value to it and you know what you can add and help your audience with? So that, again, as I mentioned earlier about my Fearless Speaker Blueprint, that's really about laying down those foundations of knowing what you have to offer your audience and being confident in your message. Once we've established that, I also really like to work on how you're structuring your message. So the use of storytelling, weaving in those personal stories, even in business talks, makes your message more memorable, and how you're structuring your speech. So do you go off and talk on tangents about other things? Do you have structures in place and frameworks of how to tell a story to help make your audience feel emotions and really be inspired by your talk? So that's the second part. And then finally, it's about how you deliver it. So that's that vocal variety and how you engage your audience. So are you using pauses? How are you using your body language to really captivate your audience? How do you emphasize particular words? How do you slow up? How do you speed down? That sort of thing. So those are the three main elements, and they're everything that I address in my Speak Up program, which is a 6-week one-to-one program where we address those three things, and together they really make a magnetic speaker. And they're the people that you want to listen to, that you want to hire for your paid speaking gigs, your podcast opportunities, all of those things. So that's why the three of them together are really important.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for telling us here about the key elements of effective public speaking and how we can develop the skills. Great. So the last question is, before I proceed to the last question, Ima, I want your perspective of this particular question. As a great speaker you are, and for instance the audience trying to like build their temerity on public speaking, can you talk us about service, you know honoring, like you try to like honor someone that is way above you in terms of public speaking, to grab one or two things from the person. Do you think services and honor is kind of like part of the characters someone that is trying to like build up his public, he or she's public speaking skills could at what's it called, like admit when serving like someone that already has built like a brand in public speaking? Do you think that service and honor is part of the characters to to learn as well?
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that I talk my clients through is shifting your focus from you and, oh my gosh, what will people think of me? What are they judging me? What am I doing? To your audience. And as you said, and serving them. So by doing this talk, by speaking to these people, what value are you giving them? So you've been asked to talk about something because you're the expert or you know something, but actually I want to know, how are you serving your audience and how are you helping them to learn something new? When you change your perspective, it comes from a different place, like you said, honor, but also it takes the pressure off you and it really helps with anxiety because it's not about you, it's about them.
Mm, mm. Amazing. That really answered my questions. And I believe that the audience are really enticed about that. Thank you so much, Ima. So the last question for you is, in your experience, how can individuals adapt their public speaking style to different audiences or
Mm.
settings, such as small meetings or large conferences? Talk us there.
Yeah. So it really depends on your audience and knowing the people that you're speaking to. But an example would be if you're in quite a small, intimate group setting, you might go for a more conversational, relaxed style. Whereas if you're at a conference where there's hundreds of people, that's not going to be appropriate. So you're more likely to adapt something that's a bit more structured, more bold, more of an authoritative figure type of style. So it's adapting to your audience. Another example would be virtual. So like this on a screen versus face-to-face speaking. So behind a screen, like this sort of setting, I would always say dial up the energy because all we have is me sat here. So I'm using gestures, I'm using my face and my voice to make it sound more exciting. Whereas if I was in person, you can move around the room, you can interact with people. So also how you're using your energy and the space around you.
Hmm.
And then I would also say how you prepare mentally. So again, going back to that mindset. So if you maybe do visualization about a talk, again, I did a visualization of this exact scenario the last few days about how I would speak to you. If I wanted to take that to a larger audience, I could. So I could visualize what the audience looked like in their seats, what the lighting looks like, where I'm going to speak, how it feels to speak confidently in that setting. So you can layer those strategies that you use to prepare for different types of speaking scenarios.
Mm, 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 mm. Wow, amazing, amazing, Ima. Thank you so much for your time today. I believe that the audience are really, enlightened more about speech language therapy, and public speaking. On how to enhance their public speaking, skills and all that. Thank you so much for as well talking us through about your transitions from speech language therapy to public speaking coaching, which is an amazing transition that works together. You know, um, thank you so much because I know you're a very busy person.
Oh, bless you.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much for having me on and giving me this opportunity. It's been really great to share with people. I've had my own battle with public speaking. I grew up really quite confident about it and then had a situation where I froze and it threw my confidence. So I had to build it back up. And that knowledge of speech therapy and coaching really helped me. And so I want to share that knowledge with as many people as possible. So thank you for giving me the platform to do that.
Yeah, amazing. So, like I said before, if you're wanting to connect with email on LinkedIn, Instagram, or any other platforms, we're gonna add all of them in the description below. So check out the YouTube description below to connect with Ima. So if you have any other question, you can drop it on the comment section, or you can as well reach out to Ima to, give some clarity on your question. So thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much.